Okay, so here's my ash soap that I made for this year. Worked out fairly well, and I've got myself a bit of a recipe now. So basically I need 1 cup of lard and 2 cups of lye solution, and in order to get that lye solution to the strength, I use the piece of potato floating in it. There's a few reasons why this recipe may not work for you in your area with the type of trees you have. I was a little disappointed. I don't think the lye I had was as good as it could be, because basically I used twice as much lye solution to get the soap to saponify, and it still feels like I could have used more. But anyway, this is mine. By all means, experiment with your own ash and what you have in your area, because I think there's so many variables that that's what you're going to have to do. With me, and I've mentioned it later in the video, I have a mixture of hard and soft woods that I use for my fireplace, so that might be why. It could be that even though it was rainwater I collected, it's collected in a tank with a dirt bottom, so maybe there's some minerals getting in that rainwater. Multiple variables, and so I think if you want to try making this, you just have to do a bit of experimentation with what you have in your area. So it's time to start making, or at least trying to make, some soap from wood ashes again. And I've been saving up wood ashes for quite a while now in here. And this is a 35-gallon drum, so I guess I've got about 10 gallons of wood ashes down there. I'll show you how to do this later, but this is that's my sieve. That's what I use to separate the wood ashes from the bits of charcoal that are still in the ashes after the fireplace. And this is it's a bit of the charcoal. So I'll show you how I do this, but pretty important, since I'm using a plastic bucket to store the ashes in, is that when you take the ashes out of the fireplace, one, I don't use anything that isn't just pure wood in the fireplace, so I don't burn plastic or anything like that in there. I don't burn treated wood. So what I get out of my fireplace I consider to be a good product. But when you do get it out of the fireplace, don't put it straight into the plastic bucket. I normally move it out, put it in a metal container for 24, 48 hours until it's 100% cooled down, and then I'll do the sieving and separating the charcoal, and then the charcoal will go over and be used in my forge. So I've got that ready, and I've got my buckets of rainwater. So I'm going to get that set up to do one final bucket of ashes sieving, and then I'm going to put the water in, mix it all up, and hopefully get as much lye. I'm not sure if lye is the absolute correct word, because it's slightly different than the lye we get in the store for making soap powder. But anyway, I'll double check on that and see if I can find the right terminology for what I'm making from wood ashes. There's going to be a couple of people who probably complain I'm not going to wear gloves in this first bit because it's such a weak solution. I'm not I'm not worried about it burning me or hurting me. So, but as I boil it down later on, then it'll get stronger, and then I need to be using hopefully it's going to get stronger, and then I'm going to have to be using gloves and glasses. So, alright. Okay, so, first thing I want to do is pour this ashes into a sip bucket. Alright, and I just shake it around, and I try to do this in a light breeze, and obviously the wind's blowing that way mostly, but I'm still getting a bit in there. You may want to put on some face mask. In fact, I might want to put on some face mask. Just a second. Hell, I got them, I might as well use them. Keep it down in the bucket. I was trying to show you, but it's just making too much dust. Keep it down in the bucket, and I just shake it around. I'm nearly there. Still a bit. Yeah, still a bit of ash in there, but it's good, not going to get it perfect. And I got some good bits of charcoal, so good enough for today. Next, make a big mess. Find something to stir that with. So, all that stuff at the bottom, I want to make sure it gets wet. It's like a nasty soup in there at the moment. Nasty grey soup. And the ash is actually clumping together at the bottom, so that's what you're trying to do, make sure it all gets wet. I think I got it. Nice. There we go. I'll show get some more water and give it another mix. Okay, so there's the kind of the consistency of it. Looks pretty liquidy and thoroughly mixed, so there's no dry spots hiding in the bottom of that. And now I'm just going to get some more water, some more rainwater, and throw it in. I think I want probably another 5 gallons in that, and that'll bring it up to where I want. And then give it one more stir, and then I'm just going to let it settle, probably for 24 hours. And hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to start bucketing off. Hopefully most of it's going to settle down, and I'll be able to start bucketing it off. So my camera may not have been working through part of that, so I just talk you through what I did. Had all the wood ashes in the bottom, had about probably up to there, so a little over 10 gallons of dry wood ashes. I've put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. I put about 20 gallons, 25 gallons of water in here, and I stirred it all around once already. I got all that dry wood ash in the bottom, and I got it mixed up and made a nice slushy mess. And so I've got everything mixed in, so hopefully that's going to get all the lye out of the wood ash. I did try this last year, trying to make a big batch of soap. Not a huge batch of soap, but something usable. And it didn't work for some reason, and I'm not exactly sure why. I'm thinking it might have been I used some filter material, some gravel and stuff like that as a filter material, and maybe that had something in it that neutralized the lye in the water. But anyway, so try it again this year, and hopefully this is going to work. So now I'm just going to let it settle. Let it settle for 24 hours, and tomorrow I'll start bucketing off the water. Hopefully start bucketing off the water, the lye solution from the top, and start, filter it and then boil it down, and hopefully then I'll have enough material to make a decent batch of soap. So this is settling out nicely, except there is quite a bit of stuff on the top of the, like if I can scoop that away, you'll see it's starting to clear up underneath, but there's a lot of junky stuff on top that I'm just going to gently, skim it off and discard it. Most of that's just bits of charcoal, I think, tiny bits of charcoal. So it's about a few hours since I did this morning. I'm going to skim this off. Nasty looking stuff. Like I said, it's settling out fairly well. I'll run it through a finer strainer when I start tapping it off to hopefully get the rest of this stuff out. But I skimmed off the majority of it, I think. Okay, so I let this sit for about 24 hours, and the ash has pretty much settled to the bottom, and there was a bit of scum on the top. I think I showed you yesterday. Anyway, so I skimmed that off, and now I'm filtering. So all I got there as a filter is like a kitchen strainer with a piece of shop tail closed pinned in there. Shop tail works fairly well as a filter, and I'm skimming off the top of the barrel. Kind of looks yellowish, a few little bits and pieces in there, but not too bad. And I mentioned it yesterday. There'll be some people saying, you're playing with lye. This is such a weak solution of lye. I'm not at all worried about it burning my skin yet. But as I boil, because today I'm going to boil it down and I'm going to concentrate it. That's the plan anyway. And you know, when I start doing that, it's going to get stronger and stronger, and that's when I have to start watching out as far as burning my hands or getting it in my eyes. Okay, so I skimmed off the top of the lye, so the water was up to about there, and I skimmed all that off. The ash has settled down, but there's still a lot of water in the ash. And now at the bottom of this tank, I had can't even find it anymore, but I had a piece of cork, you know, just a bottle cork stuffed in that, just to stop it leaking out. And I pulled the cork and stuffed the shop towel in there. Once again, you could use anything that's very that'll suck up the moisture, such as a piece of cotton cloth, and it's just very slowly leaking out and filtering it at the same time. So that's how I'm going to get the rest of the lye solution out of the bucket. And once again, this is all very weak at the moment, so I'm not too worried about burning myself with what's coming out of there. It all has to be boiled down to get strong. Okay, so it's time to finish off my soap made from wood ashes. Making a small batch. I've still got a lot more of the lye solution to use up. I want to make a small batch for now, just to try and work out my recipe. So there's a lot of different recipes for making soap from wood ashes on the internet, and I've come to the conclusion it's really hard to be able to use someone else's recipe. You need to, I think there's a lot of variability, not only in the strength of the lye, but in the quality of the lye, and so there's a lot of variability. And I think if you're going to make soap for yourself, you need to be able to do a bit of experimentation and find out what's a good recipe for you. There's also you know, variability in the type of oil you're using or grease. What I've got here is just tallow, and it's just starting to thicken up, so I'm gonna put that back on and just warm it up. I don't want to get it too hot, just warm enough so that it's liquid. Now in that pan I've got one cup. You can't see it. So in that pan I've got 1 cup of lard, and so that's what my recipe is going to start with, is 1 cup of lard. Right, so I'll let that cool back down while I tell you about the lye. So there's a few different rules of thumb for when your lye is strong enough to make soap powder. The one that I went with is a piece of raw potato. If the raw potato floats in the lye, which that is, then the lye is strong enough to make soap from. Now I've got to get it out. Okay, that oil's not too hot. That's good. I was worried it was gonna. You also want your lye. My lye is not ice cold. It's fairly warm still. Just make sure that's not gonna. Good. That's not gonna cause any problems. So my recipe: 1 cup of lard, and I'm going to go 1 cup of lye. Add a bit of a stir around, and you can actually see it's already starting to change a bit. I'm going to put a bit more in. Not quite a cup yet. So that's just gone a cup. If I don't think this, you can see that. Stir it. I'm going to put it on the heat for a little bit. Stir. Let that sit for a minute and come back, give it another stir, maybe put it on the heat again. I'm going to do that a few times. Okay, so let it sit for a while. I've tried stirring it, and it doesn't seem like it's saponifying. It still looks very greasy. So I added that other cup of lye solution, and I'm going to heat it up, and hopefully some extra heat in that will make it start turning into soap. Alright, so this has been good part of the day. It is actually finally starting to change in colour, so I think it's actually starting to saponify. So I've just been letting it sit. Every once in a while I'll heat it up and stir it, and yeah, so that's what I'm going to keep doing, and hopefully it will saponify and form a nice bit of soap. And then once I know how to do it, I'll be able to do it again. Starting to boil. Not sure if you can see that, but yep. So it's actually starting to look pretty good. So all I'm doing, I'm just sort of bringing it to the boil, taking it off and just leaving it for a while. Come back every once in a while and stir it. Okay, so it's still going. It hasn't fully turned into soap, I guess. It's still very greasy, but it is starting to change. So I'm just going to do this a few more times. I might even heat it up again and just keep mixing it, and hopefully I'll end up with soap. Okay, it's been about a week now since I made my soap from wood ashes, and I just wanted to finish this video off and tell you what I think I learned. So that's the first batch. I've got more lye solution to make more soap if I want. But this is the first batch I made. I'm just trying to work out the right mixture, and that, it seems like if you look on the internet, finding that right mixture is really, really hard. And I think what it comes down to trial and error. You've got to, because there are so many variables in it. I mentioned in the video using a piece of raw potato to get make a judgment on when the lye is strong enough. But I noticed even when I did that, I still had to use twice as much of my lye solution to make soap as what some of the other recipes have called for. So there's so many variables. I think where I am, I do use a mixture of hardwood and softwood. So I've got some pine, but I've also got some juniper, and so that's kind of a mix of hard and softwood. So maybe that's what's causing my, I'm going to say, poor quality lye water, but who knows. Anyway, so a lot of variables, and I think what it's going to come down to is you doing some experimentation. By all means, start off with somebody's recipe, but it's going to come down with you experimenting with what you have in your area, if that's what you want to do. So that's my water hot, nice warm water. Okay, I'm going to use that to wash my hands in a minute. Got to do a demo, of course. So it smells just barely soapy. It does have that nice soapy smell. So I've done other soap making, and it does smell like that. It's got a nice, consistency. It's not a hard soap like what you'd be familiar with. It's very soft, but it's good, definitely usable. And what I did, so after I'd done all the leaching of the lye, boiled it down, and then I mixed it with the oil. In this case it was lard, but the oil mixture to create soap. And then it was very, very slow to saponify, I think that's the word. So over the next couple of days after I originally made it, I would gently heat it, stir it up again, not too hot, and just kept doing that for a couple of days. And I pretty much stopped doing that once the mixture was no longer separating out. So at some point here, I had a thin layer of white grease, lard, on the top, and then I had a darker layer of the the lye solution, and they just weren't mixing. Alright, so I just, over time, I heated it up gently, mixed them all together, allowed it to cool, mixed it some more, and it's taken about a week, but now I've got a fairly, it feels like, a very consistent product. It's not separating anymore, and smells like soap. It does actually work like soap. I'm going to demonstrate that now, and so I've successfully made soap, but the recipe, I'll put the recipe up there, but you're going to have to make your own decisions on what your recipe is going to be. Okay, so my soap test to see whether my soap is actually working involves some axle grease. So I put my hands in the water with the axle grease, just smears it, makes a mess. A little bit of soap, mix it together, and this type of soap doesn't make a lot of bubbles, but is definitely doing the job of cleaning off that axle grease. Just a quick demonstration. So, very functional, probably or possibly still a little bit on the greasy side. Like it still needs a bit more time to finish saponifying, or it needed a bit more lye solution in there. I'm not sure. I'm going to give it more time, and I believe that most of these type of soaps, these homemade soaps from wood ash, get better over time. So as this gets older, it's going to get better and better. So I'm going to put this in a jar, and maybe I'll try it again in a year if I remember.